Hello once again, it's yours cruelly, roommate, here to present our third shade of horror, 1988's Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. We're still pretty tame at this point, with the threats lurking in the background for most of the movie, but by the end we'll get to some pretty dangerous evil, and unlike the Disney movies we've seen so far, it seems more plausible that our hero could get hurt. You want to check this movie out? You've got options. Amazon Prime, Hulu, AMC Plus, and Shudder all have this available to subscribers in HD. It's extremely funny, with Elvira popping out with her double entendres in every scene. So check it out if you haven't already. The movie's protagonist is Elvira. She's a horror movie enthusiast who has made a career for herself introducing and recapping scary movies, using a lot of humor and sex appeal to spice up the commentary. So basically, she's me with a beehive. And like me, she wants her career to take off. But while she needs $50,000 to secure a Las Vegas residency, I only need you to share my content, like this video, and subscribe to my channel. And, quick aside, I know that one of the qualifications of this list is that we stay away from meta horror, so you might think that her being a horror host is a violation. Well, other than her backstory, and a little bit of exposition that comes up later, it doesn't really affect the plot. Remember that the point of excluding those movies was to make sure that this list works even if you have a lack of familiarity with the genre. And this movie isn't throwing references at you left and right or doing some satire or subversion of the genre. While the movie is primarily comedic, the horror elements don't really rely on comparisons to other works to make sense. They stand on their own. Alright, back to the fun stuff. Now, even though Elvira likes the attention that she gets from being a certified dime piece, she's not too fond of the entitled uggos that creep on her, and she's not afraid to put them in their place, which gets her fired at her local TV station gig. So while her manager wants to get her this glamorous Las Vegas job, it turns out that they need a $50,000 deposit to hold a spot for the residency. She luckily finds out that her great aunt who just passed away named Elvira in her will.
Whoa, I didn't even know I had a good aunt, much less a great one.
So she's off to Massachusetts. Hey, after our brief trip to Halloween Town, we're right back in Massachusetts. After a hostile reception from most of the town, excluding the younger people, who seem pretty intrigued by her,
Unreal.
she learns that her dreams of what the inheritance might contain were perhaps overly optimistic.
What's it say about me? What I get? What I get? What I get?
To my grandniece, Elvira.
Come on, lay it on me, Morgana. Big bucks, big bucks.
Hurry up, Bigelow. Let's get on with it.
I bequeath my house and my precious book of recipes.
Where's the cash? Where's the furniture? Where's Bob Eubanks?
He wasn't mentioned.
So that cantankerous old fella is her great-uncle Vinny, who seems a little too eager to get his hands on that book. Though Elvira doesn't get any money, she figures that the house has got to be worth something, right? Well, not so much. Maybe if the Addams family was looking to move into the house, but this seems like a money pit. So after she settles into her new digs, we're introduced to the dark mysticism at work in the house. And yes, one of this movie's best running gags is that Elvira is in full makeup at all times, even sleeping. So she goes upstairs to check out these mysterious noises, and boo! Jump scare! I know it's more than a half an hour into the movie, and the only other creepy things we've gotten are this...
Sex pest.
And this...
Pest.
And this...
Sex pest.
And this...
Pest.
But hey, at least the last one was an axe-wielding psycho, even if Elvira did dispatch him without much trouble. But it turns out that the attic ordeal was all a dream. So Elvira gets the town's youth to help her make the old mansion marginally more sellable, while the town elders conspire to run her out of town. They've been able to get most businesses to blacklist her, so she can't make cash on the side, but they didn't get to the town himbo, Bob. Bob is working on his marquee when he gives Elvira the D, which gets them to start talking about how he could give her a job at the movie theater doing what she loves, hosting horror movies. Her target demographic is the same people that were helping her earlier, but the parents and teachers forbid them from being around her, so she gives a melodramatic speech.
Last thing I want to do is get you guys in any trouble. I mean, so what if it blows my only chance at making a living? That's not your problem. And if I get so depressed, I wind up hanging myself in the oven.
which gets the kids to risk
punishment to go to the late-night horror movie.
But Patty, who is pretty jelly of Elvira, overhears this plot.
She sabotages Elvira's dance number by going all Kevin McAllister on Elvira with a bit of tarring and feathering. After the show is cut short and Elvira cleans up, look, she even has makeup on in the bathtub. Elvira tries to put the moves on Bob. Nervous Bob must be worried about containing his excitement, so he deflects about wanting dinner. So Elvira gets the cookbook and tries a recipe. It calls for worms,
OG Kush from the West Coast,
and
honey mustard.
but when she cooks it, she actually is creating an abomination. After Elvira and Bob throw it into the garbage disposal, Elvira's inherited dog Gonk grabs the book and leads her up to the attic.
Deja vu.
There she learns that her mother was a powerful witch, that Gonk was her great-aunt's familiar, and that the recipe book is actually a spell book.
So this is another Massachusetts-based witch horror comedy with a spell book as the MacGuffin? Makes me think that Hocus Pocus's Winnie and Great Uncle Vinny would make quite the power couple.
But back to the flashback. Oh my god, Elvira had the makeup on even when she was a baby. This movie is
Tight.
After understanding her capabilities, Elvira gets revenge on the town prudes by whipping up a love potion that turns the sleepy town potluck into Burning Man.
Remind you of anything?
Remind you of anything?
Based. And they have I put a spell on you in this movie too. This really is Hocus Pocus, except it's horny. Elvira's revenge is short-lived, however, since once the town gets some post-spell clarity, they start looking for someone to blame. Vinny blames Elvira and tells them that
We can have her arrested.
On what charges?
There is a law on the books that dates back to the Salem trials. Any townsperson practicing the ancient arts of spell casting and conjuration. The charge is witchcraft.
while compared to the gothic horror atmosphere that drips out of every scene of The Nightmare Before Christmas, this movie might seem like a step backward, but the xenophobia of the town creates a fear of the mob, which is one of my personal biggest fears. It feels very real, even if everything around it is pretty fantastical. So now Elvira is incarcerated, while the mob prepares to burn Elvira at the stake. She asks Bob to help her escape with the spellbook, but Vinny and his goons knock him out and steal the book. Elvira is given her last rites by yet another gropey coomer.
Lord, save this wretched creature's soul, even though her creamy white flesh will burn.
Before being tied to the stake where Patty lights her up. But she remembers her magical powers and calls down a lightning bolt to start a storm that puts out the flames. A recovered Bob unties her, and then we have some fun smoochy time before Bob reminds her that Vinny is still wreaking havoc with her spellbook.
Ooh, and that fog dough.
Bob and Gonk aren't enough to stop him, so it's just Elvira versus Vinny now. Elvira gets some heavy artillery and fires a bazooka into him. Unfortunately, magic beats missile, so he shrugs it off.
Did you think you could stop me with your toys?
No, but I figured it'd be worth a shot. Look!
Their showdown goes into a foggy cemetery. It looks so classically horrific. Elvira throws a shoe into Vinny's head, which actually does some damage to him. So while he's resistant to bombshells, he isn't resistant to their footwear. Then Elvira uses her bust to bust out of the cemetery. Vinny chases her back into the mansion. He exclaims,
I am master of the dark.
but this movie isn't called Vincent, Master of the Dark, so when he tries to smite her with his magic, she reflects it back onto him to send him to hell. But their fight has enveloped the spellbook and the entire house in flames. But Elvira escapes. With the house in ruins and no magical spells to get rich with, Elvira feels defeated. Well, at least the townspeople have changed their attitude.
We were wrong about you, and we're sorry.
But then it turns out that she is the sole heir to her Uncle Vinny's fortune, so she can get her Las Vegas residency. So she clicks her jet black slippers together 3 times and says,
Las Vegas! Las Vegas! Las Vegas!
and is whisked away to the Flamingo.
The movie ends as all movies should, with the main character rapping.
And then we have some impressive tassel twirling, while Bob and Elvira's manager clap enthusiastically from the stands. Roll credits. This movie was another fun one. I hope you've seen it by now, because I haven't done justice to how funny this movie is. There's a ton of innuendo that I left out, but I'll show you a couple more glimpses of how funny this movie is via this weekend's recommendation for another review. Ashleigh Burton's first time watching Elvira video. She does a wide variety of movie reactions, but every October she focuses on scary movies. This reaction has her laughing constantly.
Good thing I'm not going to be here very long. Neighbors would never get any sleep. Heck, I was just 6 inches from selling this house today.
That's too funny. That's so funny.
And sprinkling in a few of her own jokes.
Bob, I need you to figure out something, because the flames are getting very close. And with as much hairspray on top of her head, she gonna go up real fast.
She has a gossipy, you go girl attitude about the movie.
Ashleigh's very prolific and has covered a lot of other movies that are further down on the 50 Shades of Horror challenge. In fact, she released a reaction to The Nightmare Before Christmas after I finished the script for that review. So check her out, the link's in the description. So what do y'all think? Is Elvira Mistress of the Dark scarier than The Nightmare Before Christmas? Like I previously mentioned, Elvira has to deal with some dangerous stuff in this movie, like the paranoid townsfolk. Also, that abomination was pretty gross, if unrealistic. But the movie is pretty cheerful, especially at the end.
But did I skip any other good movies that are less scary than this one? Let me know about it in the comments.
After a couple of PG affairs, we went to something pretty raunchy, and next week is only gonna get raunchier. I mean way raunchier. But as far as scariness goes, hopefully it's just a touch scarier. So click the bell so you don't miss it.
Until then, unpleasant dreams.